blessed us with Ramadan, which is the month of the Quran. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. That the month of Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that كتاب أنزلناه إليك مبارك ليدبروا آياته. That this book, this Quran, كتاب أنزلناه إليك مبارك, that this is a blessed book for whom? ليدبروا آياته, for those people who ponder over the meaning of its recitation. And so very often we find ourselves in the month of Ramadan just running through or racing through the recitation of the Quran, which has tremendous merit, don't get me wrong at all. It has incredible virtue to recite the Quran from looking at it without understanding it. And the proof of this is that the Prophet ﷺ says that every letter you recite, you get 10 rewards. And he doesn't, the hadith mentions, the English of which says, I don't say alif lam mim is a harf, but alif is a harf and lam is a harf and mim is a harf. And the scholars say that when the Prophet ﷺ gave the example of alif lam mim, it's particularly important because nobody knows the meaning of alif lam mim. Even the biggest mufassir, the Sahaba, they weren't aware of the meaning. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the meaning of alif lam mim. So this is why it's very rewarding to recite the Quran, and we should make a goal to try and make a khatam of the Quran. Now, my recommendation, just as a aside here, is that if you're not a hafiz of Quran, you should try and make this khatam of Quran outside of Taraweeh. It's going to be very difficult to do it in Taraweeh. You're much better off just reciting the short surahs that you know. Anybody who tried yesterday will realize it takes a lot of endurance and it's not an easy task, and you're going to exhaust yourself. And so my recommendation would be to recite outside of Taraweeh. And for those that cannot recite very in an efficient manner or aren't able to, then try and listen. And inshallah, we're going to share a recording of the Juz after this as well. And so it's an opportunity either to do it in chunks in the morning and evening, or if you were to just read 2 pages before and after each of the 5 daily prayers, you'll also be able to complete a Juz every day. So whatever approach you take, inshallah, that's the goal, is to try, if you can, to recite the Quran and to reflect upon its meanings. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this first juz starts the Quran with Surah Al-Fatiha. And Surah Al-Fatiha is the opening surah. And I think it's worth, sort of the homework on this is to go and study the tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha. If you think about it, there's no raka'ah of any prayer, mandatory or optional, that you can pray without reciting Al-Fatiha. And so it's really important, if we're just running through the motions and not knowing what we're saying in Salah, it's one thing, but to not even know what we're saying in Fatiha is a totally another thing that there's really no excuse for. And the scholars mention that the Fatiha is actually it's the greatest surah of the Quran. This is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that the Fatiha is the greatest surah of the Quran. And Imam al-Hasan al-Basri, he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he placed the sciences and the disciplines of the previously revealed books in the Quran. And he says that he placed the sciences and disciplines of the Quran in the Mufassal surahs. Mufassal surahs are those surahs, and there's some debate about what the exact meaning is, but roughly they start from Surah Hujurat or Surah Qaf until the beginning of the 30th juz. So these are the shorter surahs that have shorter ayat. And then he says that he placed the sciences and disciplines of the Mufassal surahs in Surah Al-Fatiha. So whoever understands the tafsir of Surah Al-Fatiha, it is as if he understands the tafsir of not just the Quran, but of all of the previously revealed books. SubhanAllah. This is what the virtue of understanding Al-Fatiha is. And many scholars here, it's mentioned that they describe that Surah Al-Fatiha encompasses all the sciences of the Quran, including praise of Allah, singling Him in His name, singling Allah in worship, the existence of commands and prohibitions, promises and threats. And Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi, he says that the Quran has 4 genres, 4 themes. If you look throughout the Quran, he says that all that Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen gives the message of lordship, and Maliki Yawmiddin negates the idea that there is a lack of free will, meaning that a person helps us understand that we will be judged for our actions, and affirms the message of resurrection, and guide us to the straight path. To the end of the surah affirms the message again of decree, but also of prophethood. So we find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Fatiha, the essence of Surah Al-Fatiha is that only you we worship, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, and only you we ask for help. True essence of servitude is in Fatiha, and then the dua that guide us to the straight path. And something beautiful about Fatiha is that it's that the requests are all in communal form. They're all in group form. And this is what makes our Ramadan experience so difficult, is that we're so accustomed to relying on one another. And even in Al-Fatiha, we ask not as a single, but as a community that guide us to the straight path. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, sirat alladhina an'amta alayhim. That group of people whom earned your favor. Like, oh Allah, make us among that group. Don't make us among the groups that have earned your anger and have gone astray. And so we ask to be part of a community. And that's what we're attempting to sort of mimic in these online gatherings. Obviously, we can't replace them, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to gather very soon. Now, in Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the very beginning, He says that هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ, that is the book, there is no doubt in it. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. It's as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us at the beginning that guide us to the straight path. What is that straight path? Immediately in the next surah, in the first page of Al-Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the book, Al-Kitab, the Quran, is the guidance for the people of taqwa. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the beauty of the Quran, as we read throughout it, we'll see that Allah is alluding and kind of taking us down a path in one portion of the Quran, and then connecting it with another section of the Quran. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the qualities of the believers in this portion. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the qualities of those who reject Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the longer portion is then dedicated to those people that are claiming to know and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but are in reality hypocrites. And so that's actually the longest discussion in this first few pages of Surah Al-Baqarah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm going to fast forward just because our goal is to keep this to 10 to 12 minutes, inshallah. So as you can see, in 10 to 12 minutes, there's very little we can cover, but just hopefully to spark your interest to go and read the translation and the tafsir of the Juz. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards the end of the Juz, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ يَتْلُونَهُ حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ أُولَٰئِكَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ وَمَنْ يَكْفُرْ بِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. This is ayah number 121, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about those who recite the Quran. الَّذِينَ آتَيْنَاهُمُ الْكِتَابَ يَتْلُونَهُ حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ. Those who recite it with its due, the way it's supposed to be recited. Meaning that we have to strive. If we don't know how to recite the Quran, take this month to try and learn. Take this month, and there's a lot of online resources. Try to get with the other members of your family or with anyone from the masjid, and try and improve your recitation in this month. Why? أُولَٰئِكَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِهِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they are those who believe in the Quran. That the first stage the scholars mention of understanding the Quran is to properly recite the Quran. The first stage, أول منزل من منازل فهم القرآن, that the first level of understanding the Quran is to be able to recite it. Because the recitation of the Quran is what penetrated the hearts of so many of the Sahaba. They heard it, they understood it, and it entered into their heart. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, we'll just mention on the very next page, on page 20 at the top, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail working for his sake and building the Kaaba, the best of all things. And what did they do at the end? They didn't say, oh, well, I just did something phenomenal and Allah owes me, right? And we should have this approach that as we enter this month of Ramadan, we should feel indebted to Allah for granting us Ramadan. We didn't deserve it. We didn't do anything to earn it, but it's a gift. It's a gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us. And when He promises that man sama Ramadana imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi, whosoever fasts in the days of Ramadan with iman, with faith and the hope of the reward, Allah forgives all their previous sins. And waman qama Ramadan, whoever stands at night in Ramadan, even if it's in his or her house, even if it's with short surahs, it doesn't matter. It's just about being consistent in your effort. It's about showing Allah that you're trying. وَمَنْ قَامَ رَمَضَانَ إِيمَانًا وَاحْتِسَابًا غُفِرَ لَهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِهِ. All of that person's previous sins will be forgiven. Now, we should have that conviction, ihtisab, when we make these actions to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's a combination of having conviction, but at the same time raising your hands like Ibrahim and Ismail did and saying, رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. That, oh Allah, accept this action from us. Ya Allah, with its deficiencies, whatever we're trying, Ya Allah, accept it from us. This is the way of the prophets, is not to be to combine the confidence that Allah will accept and to beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His acceptance. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us people who reflect upon the Quran in this month and to recite its Quran haqqa tilawatih, the way that it's due, and to accept our fasting and to accept all of our actions and our charity and our sadaqah and all good deeds and tawbah and repentance in this month. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this blessed day of Friday to send His blessings upon our beloved Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and upon his companions, upon his family and companions, and upon all those who follow him until the day of judgment. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى اللهم وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.